There is a transformation happening inside you right now. It's not visible to the eyes, but it's as real as breathing. With each day of retention, dormant male characteristics awaken. Others intensify. Some emerge out of nowhere. While most men waste their vital essence believing it's normal, a few have discovered that preserving this energy unleashes profound changes in the structure of masculinity. Not just in external appearance, but in the very essence of what it means to be a man. Science doesn't yet fully understand why this happens, but thousands of men around the world report the same experience. After weeks of seminal retention, they don't just feel different, they become different, physically, mentally, energetically. Today you will discover exactly which male characteristics transform during seminal retention, how your body changes, how your mind evolves, how your presence intensifies, and why this transformation is much more profound than anyone imagines. If you want to understand what really happens to a man when he stops wasting his life force, if you want to know about the changes no one has told you about seminal retention, then stay until the end, because what you are about to discover may change your perception of what is possible for you. The first thing you notice in seminal retention doesn't happen in the mind, it happens in the body, as if it were waking up from a deep sleep that lasted for years. In the first few days, you might even feel weakness, fatigue, a strange sense of deflation. This is normal. Your body is used to the cycle of stimulation, discharge, recovery, repeat. When you break this pattern, there is an adjustment period. But then, something extraordinary begins to emerge. Your posture changes, not because you are trying hard to stand up straighter, but because something internal aligns. Your spine naturally finds its axis, your shoulders open up, your chest expands. It's as if an energy that was dispersed finally finds its center. Your eyes come alive. The brightness that was gone returns. The intensity of your gaze sharpens. It's not just appearance, it's as if you were seeing the world with more clarity, more depth, more presence. Your skin visibly improves. It gains luster, elasticity, a healthier tone. Dark circles diminish. Expression lines soften. It's not magic. It's the result of vital energy that was previously constantly drained, now being directed towards cell regeneration. Your voice transforms. It becomes deeper, more resonant, more present. When you speak, the words carry a different weight. Not because you are speaking louder, but because they are emerging from a more solid energetic center. Your muscles gain tone, even without additional exercise. Definition accentuates. Physical strength increases. It's as if the body is finally receiving the fuel it needs to function at its maximum capacity. But perhaps the most striking physical change is in your bodily presence. You occupy space differently. It's not aggressiveness or arrogance. It's energetic density. It's as if you have become more solid, more present, more real. People notice this instantly, even without being able to explain it. There's something in the way you walk, sit, or simply physically exist that communicates strength, health, vitality. And this physical transformation is just the beginning, because when the body awakens, it prepares the ground for even deeper changes at the mental, emotional, and energetic levels. Seminal retention is not just the preservation of bodily fluid, it is the activation of dormant male potential. And this potential first manifests in the most visible temple, your physical body. When you stop constantly emptying the reservoir of vital energy, that energy doesn't disappear, it redirects itself. And one of the first destinations is the restoration and optimization of the physical machine that carries your consciousness. The result is a man who not only feels stronger, but who literally becomes stronger. Not just more confident, but energetically more solid. Not just more attractive, but genuinely more vital. And this is just the first level of transformation. If the physical transformation is impressive, the mental one is even more dramatic. It's as if a fog you didn't even know existed is gradually dissipating, revealing a mental clarity you had forgotten you possessed. In the first few days of retention, you may experience what some call brain fog, a feeling of a clouded mind, difficulty concentrating, scattered thoughts. This happens because your brain is adjusting to functioning without the constant dopamine peaks that came from regular ejaculation. But then, something extraordinary happens. Your ability to concentrate multiplies. Tasks that once required Herculean effort to stay focused on now flow naturally. You can work for hours on important projects without getting distracted, without seeking escapism, without feeling that constant restlessness that characterizes a scattered mind. Your memory sharpens. You remember details that used to go unnoticed. You connect information more fluidly. You process knowledge with a speed and efficiency you haven't experienced in years. Most importantly, your mind becomes more present, less reactive to external stimuli, less dragged along by compulsive thoughts, less dominated by anxieties about the future or regrets about the past. You develop what can be called decisive clarity. Choices that once seemed impossible become obvious. Directions that were once confusing gain sharpness. Priorities organize themselves naturally. And there is a subtle but profound change in the quality of your thoughts. They become less superficial, less reactive, less influenced by momentary impulses. Your mind gains depth, stability, the capacity to sustain complex ideas without fragmenting. Creativity explodes. Ideas emerge with a frequency and quality you haven't experienced in a long time. Solutions to old problems appear out of nowhere. Genuine insights emerge in moments of silence. This happens because mental energy that was once being constantly drained by the compulsive pursuit of sexual gratification is now available for higher cognitive processes. Your mind stops operating in scarcity mode, always looking for the next stimulus, the next distraction, the next escape, and begins to operate in abundance mode, generating internal energy instead of begging for it externally. And perhaps the most significant change, you develop an observational distance from your own thoughts and impulses. Instead of being dragged along by every idea that arises, you gain the ability to observe, evaluate, and consciously choose which thoughts deserve energy and which should simply be let pass. This observational distance is the foundation of all real wisdom and self-control, and it emerges naturally when the mind is no longer fragmented by the constant search for immediate gratification. The result is a man who thinks with clarity, decides with conviction, creates with originality, and observes with wisdom. A mind that finally serves consciousness instead of being a slave to impulses. The emotional transformation during seminal retention is perhaps the most unexpected. Men begin the practice expecting physical and mental changes, but they discover that the greatest impact may be in the emotional sphere. The man who compulsively ejaculates lives on a constant emotional roller coaster. Intense highs followed by sudden lows. Momentary euphoria followed by prolonged emptiness. Artificial excitement followed by real depression. This vicious cycle keeps the emotional system in constant disequilibrium, like a boat in a rough sea, never finding real stability. But when you retain, something fundamental quiets down. It's not that you become emotionally dead or insensitive. On the contrary, you become emotionally intelligent. The chronic anxiety you didn't even know you had begins to diminish. That background restlessness, that constant need for stimulation, that difficulty of being in silence with yourself, all of it gradually dissolves. In its place emerges something that few modern men experience: genuine inner peace, not the peace of resignation or apathy, but the peace of strength. The tranquility that comes from knowing you have internal resources to handle any situation that arises. Your patience multiplies. Situations that once deeply irritated you are now met with equanimity. People who once got on your nerves are now seen with understanding and even compassion. More significantly, you develop real emotional intelligence, the ability to read the emotions of others accurately, to respond appropriately to different emotional states, to offer a stable presence when others are in turmoil. This happens because you are no longer projecting your own emotional instability onto the world. You are no longer interpreting everything through the lens of internal lack, the need for validation, the fear of abandonment. You become emotionally self-sufficient, not in the sense of isolation or coldness, but in the sense of possessing a solid emotional core that does not depend on external circumstances to remain balanced. And this emotional stability has extraordinary cascade effects. Your relationships improve because you are no longer projecting unresolved needs onto people. Your leadership intensifies because others feel safe in your stable emotional presence. Your capacity for love deepens, not the needy love that seeks fulfillment, but the abundant love that offers emotional nourishment without expecting anything in return. You become that rare type of man who offers emotional stability instead of draining it, who calms storms instead of creating them, who who inspires confidence because you are truly emotionally reliable. And perhaps most importantly, you develop genuine compassion for yourself. You stop judging yourself brutally for every imperfection, every mistake, every moment of weakness. This self-compassion is the basis of all real emotional healing, and it emerges naturally when you stop constantly punishing yourself through the wasting of your own vital energy. The result is an emotionally mature, stable, present, and genuinely loving man. Not because he pretended to be that way, but because he became that way through conscious discipline. There is an energetic quality that some people possess and others do not. It's not something you can easily define, but you feel it when you are in its presence. It's personal magnetism, vital presence, energy that attracts and inspires. Seminal retention awakens this quality in an almost magical way. In the first few days, you might even feel less energetic than usual. This is temporary. Your system is recalibrating, learning to function without the addictive cycle of constant depletion recovery. But then, a different energy begins to emerge, not the nervous and scattered energy of hyperactivity, but a centered, solid, sustainable energy. You wake up in the morning with real vitality. You don't need caffeine to turn on. You don't need external stimuli to motivate yourself. The energy springs from within, natural and abundant. Your physical endurance increases dramatically. Workouts that used to exhaust you are now performed with ease. You can work for longer without fatigue. You recover more quickly from intense efforts. But the most notable change is in the energetic quality you radiate. People start to notice something different in your presence. Children feel attracted to you. Animals naturally approach. Even plants seem to respond better to your care. This is not New Age fantasy. It is the tangible effect of an energetic field that has become cohesive and abundant instead of fragmented and depleted. When you constantly waste vital energy, you become an unconscious energetic sucker. You seek energy from people, environments, external experiences because you are constantly empty inside. But when you retain and concentrate your vital energy, you become an energetic giver. Your presence energizes others instead of draining them. Environments improve when you arrive. People feel more alive in your company. This personal magnetism cannot be faked or learned in courses. It emerges naturally when you preserve and cultivate your internal life force. And there is a specific quality to this retentive energy that is instantly recognizable: stability. Not the dead stability of stagnation, but the living stability of centered strength. You become like a mountain, solid, present, unshakable. Others may be in turmoil around you, but you remain centered, offering a stable presence that calms and inspires. This energetic quality naturally attracts opportunities, relationships, and favorable situations, not through manipulation or techniques, but by natural law. Abundant energy attracts more energy. Vitality attracts vitality. You stop chasing experiences and people to fill internal voids. Instead, quality experiences and people start to naturally gravitate toward you. And perhaps most significantly, you develop energetic sustainability. You no longer need constant recharges through external stimulation. You generate energy internally, consistently, and renewably. The result is a man who not only feels energized, but who energizes everything around him, who does not seek vitality externally, but radiates it internally. A man who has become a source of energy instead of a drain of energy. And this transformation changes everything. The eyes are the window to the soul, and during seminal retention, that window becomes crystal clear. One of the first things people notice in men who practice retention is the change in their eyes, not just in the physical appearance, although the brightness and clarity visibly improve, but in the quality of the gaze. The man who constantly wastes vital energy has eyes that reflect internal dispersion. The gaze wanders, constantly seeks stimuli, has difficulty maintaining deep eye contact. There is a hungry quality to the gaze, as if it were always looking for something to fill an internal void. But the man in retention develops what can be called a centered gaze. It's a gaze that doesn't seek but finds, that doesn't beg but offers, that doesn't flee but remains present. This transformation happens on several levels. First, there is the obvious physical change. The eyes gain brightness, liveliness, intensity. Dark circles diminish. The skin around them becomes firmer and healthier. The whites of the eyes become cleaner, clearer. But the most significant change is energetic. Your gaze gains a depth that didn't exist before. When you look at someone, there is a real presence behind the eyes, not just the mind thinking, but the entire soul present in that moment. People feel this instantly. Women start to hold eye contact for longer. Children feel safe under your gaze. Even animals respond differently to your visual presence. You develop the ability to read people through their gaze, not as a learned technique, but as a natural sensitivity that emerges when your own vision becomes clearer and more present. And there is a specific quality in the retentive man's gaze that is impossible to fake: absence of need. His eyes ask for nothing. They don't seek validation, approval, or attention. They simply observe, present, and stable. This absence of need in the gaze is magnetic. It creates a safe space for others to express themselves authentically because they feel they are not being judged, evaluated, or consumed by your gaze. Your gaze becomes a tool for genuine connection instead of an instrument of searching or manipulation. And this completely transforms the quality of your social interactions. In conversations, you are able to maintain consistent visual presence without effort. Not because you are forcing yourself to maintain eye contact, but because you are genuinely present and interested in the moment. This visual presence communicates respect, maturity, and reliability. And people respond by opening up more, trusting more, and connecting more deeply. But perhaps the most profound change is in the way you see the world. Your perception becomes sharper, more present, less filtered by internal needs and projections. You start to see beauty that used to go unnoticed, details that were once ignored, connections that were once invisible. The world hasn't changed. Your eyes have changed. And with them, your ability to perceive reality more clearly, more presently, more truthfully. The result is a man whose gaze inspires confidence, communicates presence, and creates genuine bridges of human connection. If there is one characteristic that defines the successful modern man, it's the ability to maintain focus. But this ability is becoming increasingly rare in a world designed to destroy concentration. Seminal retention develops focus like no other practice can. The man who compulsively ejaculates lives in a constant search for immediate gratification. His mind is always looking for the next stimulus, the next distraction, the next momentary relief. This constant search mentality systematically destroys the capacity for deep concentration. But when you retain, something fundamental changes in the mental architecture. You stop living in search, find, consume, repeat mode and start operating in choose, focus, sustain, complete mode. This change manifests in all areas of life. At work, you can immerse yourself in complex projects for hours without getting distracted. Tasks that once seemed impossible to finish now flow naturally. Your productivity doesn't just increase, it qualitatively transforms. In studies, your ability to absorb and retain information multiplies. You can read dense books from beginning to end. You can maintain attention in long classes. You can process complex concepts without getting scattered. In relationships, you develop the capacity for real presence. You can listen to entire conversations without your mind wandering. You can be fully present in intimate moments without getting distracted. This ability to focus is not forced or tense. It's natural, fluid, sustainable. As if your mind has finally found its natural rhythm of functioning. And there is a specific quality to retentive focus that is different from any other form of concentration. It is focus with purpose. Not just the ability to concentrate on anything, but the wisdom to choose what is worth concentrating on. You develop discernment. Priorities become clear. Important goals naturally separate themselves from irrelevant distractions. You stop wasting mental energy on things that don't matter. This clarity of purpose transforms not only your efficiency, but the quality of your results. When you focus with clear purpose, you don't just do more, you do better. And a virtuous cycle is established. The more you practice sustained focus, the more your capacity for focus strengthens, like a muscle that develops with consistent exercise. Seminal retention is, essentially, the most fundamental exercise of focus and self-discipline. If you can maintain control over the most primitive and powerful impulse of a human being, you can maintain control over anything. This confidence in your own ability for self-control extends to all areas. You become more disciplined with diet, exercise, sleep, work, relationships. because you have proven to yourself that you possess real willpower, not a fragile willpower that depends on external motivation, but a solid discipline that springs from internal conviction. And perhaps most importantly, you develop real patience, the capacity to work on long-term projects without the need for constant gratification, the capacity to build things that matter, even if the results are not immediate. The result is a man who not only dreams of ambitious goals, but who possesses the discipline and focus necessary to make them a reality. A man who can finally trust his own ability to sustain any commitment he makes to himself. There is something about the man who practices seminal retention that inspires natural leadership. It's not forced arrogance or aggressive dominance. It's a silent but undeniable quality of command that emerges when someone has true self-mastery. Real leadership cannot be taught in courses or learned from books. It springs naturally from internal integrity. And internal integrity is exactly what develops when you gain mastery over the most primitive and powerful impulse within you. The man who cannot control his own sexual desires will never inspire true respect or lasting confidence. People may follow him temporarily, but there will always be a doubt about his capacity for real leadership. Because if he cannot lead himself, how will he lead others? But the man who demonstrates genuine self-control in the most challenging area of human experience, that man inspires automatic trust. He doesn't need to prove his strength. It is evident in the silent discipline he maintains. During retention, you develop a command presence that manifests in subtle but powerful ways. Your posture naturally communicates leadership, not because you are trying to look dominant, but because concentrated internal energy is reflected in a solid external bearing. Your voice carries natural authority. When you speak, people listen, not because you are speaking louder, but because your words emerge from a center of genuine power. Your decisions become firmer and more consistent. You stop wavering between options because you have internal clarity about values and priorities. And this decisional firmness inspires others to trust your judgment. Most importantly, you develop the capacity to take real responsibility, not just for your own mistakes, but for the well-being of those under your influence or care. This capacity for genuine responsibility is the essence of authentic masculine leadership, and it can only be developed by men who have first taken total responsibility for their own internal energies and impulses. You become the type of man others naturally seek for guidance, support, and direction. Not because you are promoting yourself as a leader, but because you radiate stability and wisdom that inspires natural trust. In crisis situations, you become the point of calm around which others organize themselves. Your centered presence offers stability when everything around you is in turmoil, and there is a specific quality in the leadership of the retentive man that is impossible to fake. He leads by example, not by force. His internal discipline is so solid that it inspires others to seek their own higher standards. You don't need to control people, you inspire people. You don't need to manipulate behaviors, you model behaviors. You don't need to demand respect, you earn it through consistent integrity. This form of leadership is especially powerful because it is sustainable. It doesn't depend on temporary charisma, favorable circumstances, or external energy. It is based on a solid internal strength that remains constant regardless of external conditions. And perhaps most significantly, you become capable of leading without ego. Your leadership is not about proving personal superiority, but about serving the greater good of those around you. Because when you no longer need to prove anything to yourself through constant gratification, you can dedicate genuine energy to the growth and well-being of others. The result is leadership that inspires instead of intimidates, that elevates instead of dominates, that serves instead of exploits. The kind of leadership the world desperately needs, but which can only be offered by men who have first conquered leadership over themselves. Brother, you have just learned about the 7 fundamental transformations that happen during seminal retention, changes that go far beyond what you thought was possible, changes that touch the essence of what it means to be truly masculine, a renewed body, a sharpened mind, a centered heart, abundant energy, a transformed gaze, unwavering focus, natural leadership. These are not empty promises or motivational fantasies. They are real transformations, documented by thousands of men who had the courage to preserve their vital energy long enough to discover who they really are when they stop wasting themselves. The question isn't whether these changes are possible. The question is, do you have the courage to discover what you are capable of? Do you have the discipline to preserve your most precious strength long enough to see it transform into real power? Are you willing to give up momentary pleasures to achieve lasting transformation? If the answer is yes, know that you are not alone on this journey. Subscribe to the channel, TheSeeker. We are a reference in the subject of masculine transmutation, with hundreds of testimonials from men who discovered versions of themselves they didn't even know existed. Watch our other videos on vital energy, masculine development, seminal retention, and inner transformation. And comment below, I choose transformation, because this choice needs to be declared. It needs to be publicly assumed. We are a community of seekers, of men who refuse to accept mediocrity as destiny, who have discovered the transformation you seek is already inside you. It was just being wasted day after day. Retain, transform, become who you were born to be.